Welcome again. I'm Clare Martin and I work at St. Ethelburga's, and I'm really delighted to welcome you all to this conversation about faith and moral courage with Jetsunma, Tenzin, Palmo, and Sister Lucy Kurien. And this is the first in a series of events where we're going to be exploring the question of what does it really mean to live moral courage in our very challenging times? And at St. Ethelburga's, we believe it takes a very particular quality of moral courage to reach out and to listen to those who may be different to us, to hold different beliefs, different perspectives, to be of different political persuasions, and that this is a quality of moral courage that's really especially needed in our very fractured age. So over the course of this series, we'll be hearing from a really wide range of speakers, and I hope that you'll join us on this journey. And for today, I'm honestly very delighted and thrilled to be launching this inquiry with two of my own personal heroines. Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo is the first woman to have been ordained in the Tibetan Buddhist monastic tradition. Her biography, Cave in the Snow, recounts the story of how she lived alone for 12 years in a cave in the Himalayas as a part of her spiritual training. She founded the Dongyu Gatsal Ling Nunnery in Himachal Pradesh, India. She has traveled the world sharing the teachings of her tradition and is a much revered teacher throughout the Western world. Sister Lucy Kurien was a young novice in a Catholic convent in southern India when she had an experience that would change her life. She found herself in a position where she couldn't help someone who came to her in great need, and something quite devastating unfolded after that. This experience led Sister Lucy to create Maher, a shelter for destitute women and children. What began with a single refuge in one village has grown to include 33 homes, where many people have received shelter, education, and love. So, as a way of opening this conversation, I'd love to invite maybe Sister Lucy that you could begin to tell us something about your own personal journey, and particularly when your journey of faith began, what ignited that in you, and what you had to overcome to live what your faith really called you to do.
So thank you, Claire, for that invite. I'm really very happy to be here and to share with you all my simple journey to what I am today. As Claire already shared that, brought up in a very traditional Catholic family. Then later on, I became a Catholic nun after I had really witnessed the slum lives in Bombay. And I thought by becoming nun, I will be able to clean up the slums of Bombay, because that was the type of energy I had at that time. But of course, the slums are still there as it is. I have not achieved even in doing anything over there. But as a young girl, I had met Mother Teresa, and I wanted to join Mother Teresa's home and Mother Teresa's sisters. But at that time, I'm talking about 45 years ago. I'm 68 now. And so at that time, my parents did not allow me, because they said Mother Teresa was picking up leprosy patients, and they were both alarmed that I was going to join her. So somehow I did not want to make my parents sad. So I gave up the idea. In fact, I have written, they had given me a form to fill up, and I had gone with that form to Kerala, because I was staying in Bombay, because I had taken up a job there. And then I traveled to back to Kerala to take the signature of my parents because parents' consent was needed. But when I heard that when I saw my parents were so upset with me, I gave up the idea. And then I joined Holy Cross. My parents were not happy with my decision, but then I said, no, I'm really going. You know, sometimes when I am stubborn, I do that. So I went there and I told my parents, I said, once I had given up, and now second thing also, you are not allowing me, but I want to do it. So finally, of course, they didn't give me the permission. And I went and I joined the Holy Cross. And I stayed there for 9 years, and I was watching the entire system that was going on. And in somehow I was not unhappy with the nuns, but I was unhappy with the way that what I was having in my mind. Because my thing was that I wanted to do directly the work with the very poor people, and that was not happening. So I was not very happy. Of course, I was very fond of the nuns and I was very happy there. But at the same time, I was not happy the way that I was doing things. So finally, I took the permission to work in a village, which I got. And in that, when I was working in the village, what happened was that, Claire, that I can continue sharing that story. Isn't that okay? Claire?
Yes, please do share
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Yes.
So then, so when I was working in the village, it so happened that a woman came running to me and asking for shelter. You know, those days I did not have any shelter home. And I said, how can I help her? And I was still staying with the nunnery. So the rules were very, very strict. We cannot take somebody from outside into the nunnery. So I was forced to send her back. And that very night, she and her husband, they must have had some fight as usual. And she told me that her husband is an alcoholic, he's a hot-tempered. So I'm unable to stay that night. But where could I send her? I sent her back. And, you know, when she went back, I suppose they must have had some fight again. And in that anger, he poured kerosene and set her on fire. And this lady was also 7 months pregnant. And I was in a remote village. And that time, the place that I was staying was, I don't know, I don't think even God knew where it was existing or not. It was so remote. And by the time I found, I ran there to see what was all the commotion about, because she was shouting, yelling. The village people, the slum people were shouting and yelling. So I just ran there to see what was happening. When I reached there, I realized it was the same woman that had come to me. And with the help of the people of the village, you know, it is like, we call it the chawl. It's like almost like a slum. And there was no rickshaw, there was not a car. We don't have a car. We did not have anything that time. And I did not know how to help her out. Finally, we found an auto rickshaw and I took her to the hospital. When I took her, doctor told me it is too late, that she is already 90% burned. And then I asked doctor, I insisted doctor that I want to see the baby, remove the baby. And when we got the baby in my hand, was a fully burned baby or fully cooked baby, you can put it, whatever in a rough way you can add it. And this shook my entire life. I said, no more staying like this. If my life is not able to touch another human being who is in need, it's no use of being in a nunnery. So then I wrote several letters to my sisters in charge, and I asked them permission to move out and do something for women. First, I was trying to convince the nuns that we will do something for women. But you know, what I was seeing, they could not see, or they could not understand how they will do it. So finally, with great difficulty, I managed to get the permission to move out. I'm still a nun, but they gave me the permission to remain a nun, but they told me Lucy, the work that you are doing will not belong to the congregation, because they were really afraid that there will be a huge amount of money that is required. I knew also that I will need a lot of money, but that didn't prevent me from thinking of what I wanted to do. I had this dream of building a shelter home where, how being a nun, I had nothing in my hand, but somehow, I don't know, something was telling me everything will be well. I don't know from where that kind of, when you say about courage and faith, from where it was coming, I did not know, but I could feel that something will come up. And the beauty of that is that the poor people around, they were very, very poor. And whenever I told the people, we need to build a home, they were donors for me, even with 2 rupees those days, which was, I found that, when I saw the trust of the people in me, that gave me more courage to ask for more funds and things like that. And so I set up our first home in 1997 in a remote village, which is called Vadubudru. So at present, we have 68 homes, shelter homes for women, for children, and also for men, the homeless men who are on the street. Even this morning, I was traveling from Goa to Pune. I had to pick up one woman because she was on the street. So these are the type of, just now, over 2,000 people are staying in these 68 homes. We are working now in the 7 states of India. And in Maharashtra itself, we are in different districts, 7 districts of Maharashtra. We are in Pune, Bombay, Ratnagiri, Miraj, and all the other, there are in different districts we are saying, and even in the district, we are also in different cities, in the villages also, we are working. We have created homes for the women, for children, and also for what we call men. And whenever I find men who are homeless, who are sleeping on the street, for me, it was at that time, to begin for men, it was very difficult, because I found it really frightening to go there to ask them, why are you on the street? But once I began, my fear went off. And initially, as I said, there was a lot of, I don't know whether it is called fear or whether it is uncertainty. Whether will I be successful? Will I be able to do this work? And, all these fears were there. But somehow over now we completed 26 years. And I can say everything has been a lot of challenge, but never give up. I continued with a lot of what you call I think a lot of courage it needed. When I started opening the homes, there was a lot of concern among my board members. Lucy, how will you manage? How are you going to manage? I said, I don't have to manage. The divine energy will show us whom to put there, and they will manage. I am not in charge of this project. It is the divine energy that is in charge of the project. So the divine will lead us to the right people. And I can tell you, from the time I started, I found the very good people joined me. So the credit goes to the people who are running these homes. It's nothing to do with me. And the entire thing, I give it to the people who are running the homes in every state and in every cities, because they are the ones who are really courageous. Of course, I am there with them. Anything that happens, that I own I take up all their mistakes. And in case they make any mistake, also be with them, guide them, protect them from things that are really, sometimes they make serious mistake. Go there and be with them. That's, of course, is my, what you call, that's the core thing, that I stand by the people when they are making mistake. And of course, if they are not learning, then we have to see what to be done. But normally it is all, the whole thing goes to the staff who are doing the work. And it is not easy. It needs a lot of courage to go and pick up people, especially the men. And because sometimes they're alcoholic maybe, and even if they're alcoholic, why leave them on the street? So I pick them up, try to bring them home, and if they are alcoholics, see if they can help them to get rid of their bad habits. Sometimes they go back and become worse than what they are, then okay, but be with them. This is what I look at. And of course, a lot more things we are doing. And the whole thing, what I can say in what we are doing, to see that how we will not have more and more homes like Maher. That is what I'm working on. It's not only opening homes, of course there is a need now, but at the same time work to see how we will not have homes like Maher. For that, we are creating what you call a lot of educational program for women, for men, and also for children. And our main focus is on the children's education, so that these women now, they are on the street, but the future generation will not come onto the street. So towards that, we work very hard, and I'm very through self-help groups. At present, we have nearly 1,000 self-help groups in different villages. And so they all are working on together. When you say, I don't know whether you understand self-help groups, that is, like something like microfinancing. And it's all like people who come together, save money, and then so that, we can talk to them on various things. These are all stepping stones for us to enter into the village. So we create self-help groups so that we are with the people. We create kindergartens so that we are with the people. We create tuition centers, or what you call coaching centers, so that we get the people in our hand to talk to them on various needs and find out what are the needs that are there in that particular village. This is what we are trying to do. In all this, what was guiding me is one of the quotations from the Bible. And that is, whatsoever you do, you must have some of you must be very familiar with that quotation. That is, whatsoever you do to the least of my people, you do unto me. And everything, that takes a lot of courage to do what you think is right, and to stand up, for what you are doing, and to be transparent all the time. It's not easy, because the more you go higher, the more transparent you have to be with the people. The integrity that you have towards the work that you are doing, and make it easy. The way you live, it has to be so simple and so what you call transparent, so that other people can just come and follow you. Don't make the life complicated. Live very simple life along with the people. So this is what I looked at, and I live with the people. And so, when you live with the people means, it's not like day and night I'm living with the people. Huh? It's not that I don't have even a separate place to go to sleep. It's like everything is with the people. So, it takes, how do you call it? Yeah, it's a joyful life, but at the same time, a lot of courage is needed to live with the different faith of the people. We have people from different faith, but what we encourage is, when we come together, we come to pray to the divine energy, or to the divine light, whatever you call it, or God, whatever you want it. Okay, but not taking any particular name of any God when we are praying, because not that I don't believe in that sense, like, I believe all those people came and taught us a way to go to the divine. And why should we get stuck to the particular religion as such? Then that becomes an obstacle for us to go further. Okay, so anything that becomes an obstacle in my way to experience the divine energy within me, I try to stop it. so that I am free to follow the path that I think is okay for me. I don't know what it makes sense to you all, but that's what I try my best. And of course, the teachings of Jesus is deep within me. But I don't have to, go around and tell Jesus, Jesus all the time. You have to just live it, live what you are believing in. Okay, that many other people, they don't even know that I am a nun. They don't understand what is who is a nun mean, what does a nun means. People don't understand that in the villages. And I never speak about Jesus, and I don't need to do that, because I believe that Jesus came to teach us something, way of life, and so I follow that. But that doesn't prevent me from learning from the other mystics or other people who are there. Even now in our midst, there are so many people from whom I have to learn. Like from Jetsunma, I learned so much. So there are people from whom I learn. So I am free. I am open to that, to take in the beautiful teaching the people are offering me. Not only the nuns who are dead and gone, but people who are living with me. So this is what I believe in. Okay, thank you for the opportunity, and there's much more. You can ask me anything that you all would like to ask me later on. So thank you, Claire. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sister Lucy. What a beautiful, beautiful answer to that question. And I'm really left with this image of you as a young nun who's had this experience that you said shook your entire life. And that
Yeah.
you didn't know where the faith came from. You didn't even know where the faith came from that gave you the strength, even with nothing in your hands, not even the full support of your community, to undertake this work. Thank you. So I think I'd like to offer really the same question now to Jetsunma about when this spark of faith came alive in your life, and what gave you the courage to really live it to the full, and what that meant for you.
Well, I'm so inspired by Sister Lucy. I really don't want to say anything, but since this is supposed to be a conversation. Okay, so when I was very, very young, from, really about 4 or 5 years old, I believed that we were inherently perfect, and that we had to come back again and again to discover our innate perfection. So therefore, from very small child, my question were, how does one become perfect? And what is perfection? What is it? And I would ask everyone, my teachers and the priests and anybody I thought might know, even the spirit guides, because my mother was a spiritualist. What is perfection? And everybody said, well, you have to be good. And some people added, you have to be good and you have to be kind. And even at a small age, I thought, no, that's not it. Yes, of course we have to be good. Of course we have to be kind. But I know lots of people who are good and kind, but they are not perfect. What is this quality within us that we need to rediscover, that we have forgotten and that we don't know, but is our true nature? So then I was trying all sorts of religions, but I had never really believed in the idea of a creator God. I didn't believe there was someone out there judging us and pulling the strings behind the scenes and so forth. So therefore, most of the Orthodox religions were kind of not much interest. I even tried reading the Quran, but it just didn't work. And so I thought I have to find a path for myself. And then when I was 18, I was working in the library, and somebody left a book called The Mind Unshaken. And I loved the title. So I picked up the book and eventually got round to reading it. That time I was reading mostly existentialist philosophy. And it was a book on very basic precepts of the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and Three Signs of Being. And as I read it, I just knew this was it. And I said to my mother, I'm a Buddhist. And she said, oh, are you, dear? Well, that's nice. Finish reading the book, then you tell me all about it. And it was just like discovering what I had already known. And so then, I mean, there had been many insights in the past which were, now I recognized were very Buddhist insights, but at the time, because I hadn't known that. Anyway, so at that time, this was the early 60s, and I was a teenager. I renounced because it said you had to renounce, so I gave up Elvis Presley and all my clothes and boyfriends and everything, and was very renounced. But I never read anywhere about nuns. I only read about monks. However, after a while, I recognized that my connection was with Tibetan Buddhism, and then I realized I needed to find a teacher. So although a very few monks, lamas were coming to England, this was still pre-hippie period, and there wasn't much going on even in London. So then when I was 20, I went to India because I knew I had to find my teacher. My mother was wonderful. Even though I was, my brother was in the Royal Air Force and he was in Singapore, and so there was only me at home. And my mother and I got on very well together. She also became Buddhist. But she never said to me, how can you leave me? Your poor old mother. She wished me well. And she really, all the time I was in India, she never, every 10 years she would say, come home for a month if I send you a return ticket. And she was really very, very supportive. Anyway, I went to India, then I worked in the school for young incarnate lamas. And at one time, I was the secretary for the person running that, Frida Bedi. And there was a letter asking for us to sell some Tibetan homemade paper. And it was signed Come to Rinpoche. And as I read that name, just spontaneously faith arose. And so I asked Frida, who is Come to Rinpoche? And she said, oh, he's a very high Kagyu Lama. And anyway, to cut a long story short, on my 21st birthday, I met with Come to Rinpoche. He finally came. And then 3 weeks later, I became a nun. Then I went to work with him as his secretary and teaching English to the young monks. The problem in those days was that there really wasn't anything happening for nuns. Nuns were not educated and they were very neglected and overlooked. And although I was very fortunate because I could see my Lama, I was his secretary, and the other incarnate Lamas there, but in general, there really were almost no nuns at all, and all the emphasis was on creating new monasteries. These were Tibetan refugees who had left with His Holiness the Dalai Lama or before in 1959 and left everything behind, so they were really struggling, in this completely new environment of India. So anyway, then I worked for my Lama for about 6 years. Then he said, now it's time you go away and practice. And so he told me to go to this Himalayan valley of Lahul, which is at about 11,000 feet. So I went to Lahul and I stayed in the monastery there for about 6 years, which was lovely. I loved the monks and nuns there. But in the end, it was a bit too social. They all got together, for, I don't know, they were very nice, sociable people, but I wasn't there to socialize. I was there to do a retreat. So then I heard about a cave further up the mountain. So then I went there. And people think it's tremendously courageous. It wasn't courageous at all. I was just so happy to find somewhere Lahul is a Buddhist area. So I never worried about being alone. And it was wonderful to have this isolation. 5 months of the year it was snowing, so nobody could ever come. And for doing practice, it was ideal. So I was just incredibly grateful. I mean, I didn't think it was anything particularly special at all. Mostly every year I would go back to Tashijong, where my Lama now was, to see him and to seek his advice. And then I would return to Lahul. The last 3 years I stayed in long-term retreat and didn't come out. And then in the late 80s, for whatever reasons, I was kind of thrown out of India for visa situation. So this was very nice. Then I went to Italy to stay with some good friends there, which was wonderful. I mean, 24 years I'd been in India, and I needed to reconnect with Western culture. And where better than Italy? So they were in the hills behind Assisi, which of course is, you know, very connected with not only St. Francis, but also St. Clare. And so I stayed there for a few years. Then I felt I needed to go back to India. So I came back to India in the 90s and was told, the Lamas said, look, we have nothing for nuns, so why don't you start a nunnery? And then I thought, yes, that's what I need to do. I need to start a nunnery, but how? You know, like Sister Lucy, I mean, I had no money. I wasn't a Tibetan. I wasn't a Lama. I wasn't anybody. How the hell do you start a nunnery, right? I had no idea, except I knew this is what needed to be done. So then, again, I had a scroll painting of the Buddha Tara. She represents fearless compassion and very immediate action. So I said to Tara, okay, lady, if you want a nunnery, you do it. I have no idea, but I will be the front person, and you've got to get it together. If you want it, you do it. It's all yours. And so again, like Sister Lucy, I didn't worry about it. I mean, I felt if it was going to happen, it would happen. The divine energy would carry it along. And it did. So now we have a nunnery of about 115 nuns. The most important change for Buddhist nuns is that nowadays they receive education. And education is the key. I mean, as Sister Lucy says about the poor people, you know, what they need is education. Then that gives them a voice, and then they are able to go forward. Until then, it's very difficult. So for nuns, there was this revolution, nothing to do with me. I mean, this all was happening around this time, where in the various nunneries, it was understood that actually nuns were quite intelligent and should be studying and debating and doing all the things which the monks did. And the monks themselves stepped forward to help. I mean, they have been always the teachers and the trainers, and without them we could do nothing. So nowadays nuns are very independent. They are themselves teachers and themselves going forward and carrying the flag. So here we are. And here I am. Nothing compared with Sister Lucy, because Sister Lucy has benefited thousands. I have benefited so few people. But in order to go, one good thing was that in order to raise interest in nuns, we had to travel the world, giving talks on meditation and on basic Buddhist principles. And that has been a wonderful insight into how all over the world, essentially, you know, people are just people. And most of them have good hearts. If you find out about them, then inside they have goodness. And this seems to be a worldwide principle for everybody. So that was good. I mean, it opened up one's eyes to the essential kindness and goodness inherent in human beings, despite all their problems. So here we are. It's nearly Tibetan New Year. Next week will be the year of the water rabbit. And yes, here we are.
Jetsunma, thank you so much for that answer. And I'm really struck by the story that you tell about speaking to the goddess Tara and saying, this is down to you, which for me really also resonates with the quality of faith that inspires Sister Lucy's work as well. I wanted to ask both of you a question about your friendship with each other. And I'd be curious to hear from each of you, what your friendship has meant to each other and what you've learned from one another as friends. And maybe I'll put that question first to Sister Lucy.
Well, for me, it is such an honor to have known Jetsunma. And I think it's quite many, many years now that it was the divine energy, as I said. There was a good friends of mine from US. They had taken me to Jetsunma, and that's how I came to know her. And from that time, I think I'm in love with her. Because, the way she goes about, full of joy, sometimes I wonder, the life that she leads with this, with the people, with all the nuns. I said to myself, how can she be like this, so simple, grounded, at the same time so joyful, and with full of divine energy around her. So that makes me very, very attracted. And of course, I get attracted to people like her. And she has remained always someone whom I really admire. So Jetsunma is you that way. So thank you for being what you are in my life. I'm so grateful that the divine put us together.
Indeed, Lucy. For whatever reason, we were brought together, we met each other, and then again and again, we've met each other in various conferences. And now and again, Lucy gives herself a short breathing space in all her busy, compassionate life and comes up to DGL. But she always has the phone listening for people who are, again, calling out and are destitute and need homes. And, her staff are saying, no, there's no room. And Sister Lucy always says, we will make room. And she never turns anyone away. And so for me, she is an enormous, all right, if people sometimes say, who inspires you? I would say the one person who really inspires me in my life is Sister Lucy. Because she says that I'm joyful and energetic. She's just looking in the mirror. Because with all the hardship and the awful things that she's hearing about day after day after day, and the difficulty she has with dealing with officials and so forth, nonetheless, she just radiates joy. She's like a sun inside her, just shining out. And that's why people believe her, and that's why people help her, and that's why she has done so much to inspire people to reach out and help others. Really a wonderful woman in our midst, and a joyful woman. Always laughing, despite everything. She reminds me somewhat of His Holiness Dalai Lama, who is another one who is always hearing about everybody comes to him and dumps their problems in his lap, and he cries when he hears about it. But 5 minutes later, they're all just joking together and laughing, and they come out smiling because he takes in their suffering and it doesn't sit like a heavy rock inside. But like with Sister Lucy, their wisdom and compassion transforms it into helpful energy, a joyful energy. And that's an incredibly rare, so many people who do social work just burn out. And I think it's because they don't really have faith. And what guides Sister Lucy is her deep faith in the divine. And because of that, whatever comes to her, she can just dissolve it back into that fire of her deep faith. it all burns away and it doesn't burn her up. So, you know, she's a wonderful woman, really. And rare in this world, but beautiful.
I think Jetsunma is always like that, over generous in telling. I am just like you all, like anybody else.
If only, Sister Lucy, this would be a different world if we were all like you.
Oh.
Anyway, you're talking about courage and faith, and I would say that that is exemplified in what Sister Lucy is doing and what she inspires in others, which is also very important because she started all these homes, and as she says, she's only one. So they are run by all these other people that she has inspired with her example and her vision. And so this is the point, that she is able to ignite that flame in others and not just only keeping it to herself. So really, I think this is the thing that people do. We all innately do have courage and faith, but it sometimes needs to be revealed because it's covered up by people's anxieties and worries and, oh, but if I do this, then what will that happen? And how can I do something? We don't believe in our own inner potential. This is the problem. Our own innate wisdom and compassion, which is there waiting to be discovered. But normally we don't see it, we don't recognize it. So the fact that Sister Lucy herself embodies this, but is also able to inspire others likewise, this is what makes her so special. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Jetsunma. I can only echo that. But some of what you've said has kind of raised another question inside of me. I've been reflecting a lot on the theme of courage and how we often think of courage as an antidote to fear. But I wonder about some of the other obstacles that there are that courage is useful to help us to burn through. And if sometimes thinking about those other obstacles might help to clarify for us what courage really means or what competencies of courage are needed in our time. You mentioned the word recognition. I think in both of your stories, there's a very extraordinary, quality of recognition that you seem to have at a very young age, a clarity of vision and purpose. And I suppose I wonder sometimes if the obstacles that, when I think about myself, some of the obstacles that I need to overcome aren't necessarily fear. They might be inertia or a sort of lack of energy to initialize something that I've recognized, or actually a blurriness, or, that absence of that, where that quality of recognition isn't quite so clear. And I suppose I put that back as a question to both of you, really, because also you seem like very fearless women. But I wonder, were there other obstacles or other things that you needed to overcome in yourselves that courage could be useful for? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, of course. Jetsunma, it's okay that I will share one of the small incidents that how I managed to overcome, or is it?
Please.
Yeah. See, when I started Maher as an interfaith organization, it was not very easy because to get the support from the Catholic Church, because there were bishops, priests, and others. They asked me, does canon law allow this? I said to myself, I don't know anything about the canon law because I'm not educated in that. I just know what the human law tells me, and that is to love everyone. Okay, so things like that, and I really boldly put it as love is a religion. So because that's what Jesus taught us, to love one another. I never had an experience where Jesus said anything rather than that. So I put it on every, if you see in all our prayer plays, or meditation places everywhere. I put it that way, like in a local language, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. That means the whole world is as my family, or as one, things like that. So it was very difficult for the church to accept me. Then in one time there was like that fear, oh my God, I will be cast out from the church. That's the place that I was very comfortable with, known people. And then I will be with no one, that way. And it did happen. Especially from my nunnery, I was not getting any support as such in the first place, because they all thought like, what is she doing? She's a nun and now she's not having a cross even on her neck. Because I don't know whether if it is clear, if I can make it clear, because this is the, can you all see this? Okay, these are all the different symbols of this thing. So I put it together. So then when I removed my cross, as it is, I removed my habit. Now I removed the cross. So they did not know where I'm going to, and still she's a Catholic nun. Then I was trying to tell the nun, see, I'm a nun for myself, for me. For being a nun is not helping other people if I don't do work, what Jesus had told me. So this kind of things I was trying to talk to them. So, I knew I'll be rejected by the people, by the church, and I will be questioned. I was very sure of that. And so little by little, I gathered courage to be what I am. I'm not saying overnight it came. It came slowly with me. And naturally, it was also told to the people not to go there, because they felt that, I will, make other people to lose the faith in Christianity or Christ and things like that. So there was a lot of fear. I said, that is their fear. It is not my fear. My fear is not that. My fear was that I will be I will not have any people with me. That was, but then I noticed when I gave up that kind of this small community, I felt I could embrace the whole world with the way I was going about. So when I knew that I have the whole world with me in that sense, then why am I afraid of this small community if I lose it? So, but I didn't, to tell you the fact, I did not lose anyone. In fact, I gained everybody. Slowly they understood me, and I am well accepted. So, and for me, the most joyful experience before if I tell you with the courage and things like that, when I was called to meet Pope, Pope Francis, it was such a beautiful experience. And I said, no, none of my other sisters got an occasion to meet him, and I could meet. So that was one of the things that gave me a lot more courage. Then not only that, then when I was called for an award from the President of India, again I said to myself, I lost my small contacts, this small community, but there are people are waiting for me in the world, so why should we be afraid? But when I saw that, when I accepted this small community like that, I mean, a larger community, even the smaller ones became very close to me. So in fact, I lost no one. Now I feel like, even yesterday I had to go to Goa and I met quite a few sisters also there. And I felt, wherever I went, there was so much of acceptance. There was a fear I will not be accepted, but it was not that way now. So that's what I can share. It's not, I've not lost anything.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sister Lucy. I'd love to put the same question to Jetsunma.
What's the question? Exactly, Claire?
It's a question about what are the obstacles that courage is needed to help us to overcome? And is that obstacle always an obstacle of fear? Or are there other obstacles like inertia or illusion or delusion, and is there something we can learn about courage by sort of backing up and looking again at what the obstacles are that it helps us to overcome? And I suppose I asked the question, does that make sense?
I mean, I think the question is, what is courage? You know, I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with fear. I think that one gains courage by believing that there is something which needs to be done, which you're going to do. And whether you want to do it or not is irrelevant. It's something which needs to be done. And somehow there's an inner certainty that this is the right way to go and the right thing to do. I mean, for example, with Sister Lucy, knowing that her life's work was to take care of those who are disregarded by everyone else, you know, the rejects of society. She comes along and takes them all up to her heart, right? That's her job. And it's not based on fear. It may look like courage to other people, but to her, it's just its inner certainty that's what she needs to do. So for myself, it was much more modest. And my feeling was especially that we needed to help these young women who wish to be nuns in the Himalayan tradition especially, and are being so overlooked and neglected, and nobody is noticing how bright, intelligent, focused, and devoted they actually are, what incredible potential they have for enhancing the religious body instead of being ignored, like, you know, they were not of any importance. So once that idea, I had experienced it myself, so I could see how much it was so for everyone else too, for all the other females. Then that was just obviously what you have to do. And I mean, going around the world giving talks and trying to get people to interest even just in the situation of nuns. Oh, nuns, people would say. Oh, nuns, yes. Lamas never mention nuns. I've been supporting this monastery for 20 years. Nobody ever said anything about nuns. And that was the situation. I mean, not just myself, but many others also recognized that there was really a big lack in the Buddhist world, and especially in the Tibetan Buddhist world, of the feminine. There was such a lack of appreciation of the feminine. I mean, yes, Tara and so forth, but like the Virgin Mary in Catholicism, that doesn't help women become priests. Likewise, in Buddhism, yes, many of the bodhisattvas are female, like Kuan Yin, but it doesn't help the social status for the female practitioners. And that's what needed to be helped, that they needed a big boost up, both from the point of view of their studies and from the point of view of their actual practice. So, you know, one goes ahead. You know, it's not a matter so much of courage, it's just of conviction that this is what has to be done. So since nobody else was doing it, you know, okay, here I go. But I did have the support of the lamas. This was true, because they were the ones that said, start a nunnery. So they were very supportive insofar as they approved of the idea, and in time stepped forward to help train the nuns when they turned up. But I think real genuine courage is just a belief in what you are going to do is what you should be doing. And then if you have that conviction that whether you want to do it or not, that's what needs to be done, then the energy to accomplish comes along with it.
Thank you so much. And it's a wonderful definition of courage, very, very simple, that I think we can all take away. So I think now we'll move to some audience questions and answers. And I think, as I understand it, Jetsunma, that you've got to leave us at this point. I'd just like to say, and really, huge thank you to you for joining us today for this conversation and for everything that you've brought. Really, really deep. Deep gratitude. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. And for anyone in the audience who would like to put a question to Sister Lucy, please just pop it in the chat box right now. And then I'll ask Nick to unmute you so that you can speak to Sister Lucy. So please do pop any questions that you have into the chat box now. And while we're waiting for any questions to come through, I wonder, Sister Lucy, if you could speak a little bit to a question that Jetsunma raised kind of towards the end of what she was speaking about just now, which is about a particular quality of courage that may be needed to live as a woman, or to live the feminine in a world where perhaps it's not seen or fully honored.
Yeah, what I feel is when I started, because if you know a little more about the Indian culture, in the interior villages, because I started this project in a very interior village. So it is a rather male-dominated society, and then to start as a woman plus an unmarried woman, not knowing the culture of Maharashtra, because I'm coming from Kerala, and I did not know a word of the local language. So it was in every aspect, if you call it. I did not know the culture. Being a woman, then I did not know the language, and so there was a lot of obstacles. Okay, then I was thinking, and at the same time, to be a woman presence there, it was rather difficult. But then slowly, when I started it, what I found is that naturally it was being accepted. It took time, but it was accepted. At the same time, I found being a woman, I could become more courageous. If the fear aspect did not come into me so much as such, because somehow I felt that I was doing a right thing. So why should I have the fear? Because there was people who doubted that because my name is so much Christian, people thought that I had come there for conversion. So my religion was becoming an obstacle to me. And another thing is that, when unmarried, like in India, there are like signs what says you are married, and people understood I was not married. And then to stand all by myself, because I was not having not even a single nun along with me. So I was starting this project all by myself in a place where I did not know the language, in a place where the totally different culture than from Kerala. And things like that. So, at the end, I could feel the energy, the feminine energy was really different from the male energy. And that's what I felt. Because I feel the male would have gone more with their mind, and I went so much with my heart to do the work. So it was becoming, I won't say it did not create any difficulties. Of course it was there, because there are people who spat on me, came to kill me and things like that. But ultimately I felt, this when we exercise the real beautiful energy of the feminine, it becomes much more easier. I don't know if the men will agree on that, but I felt it was much more easier in being a woman in that sense. Though there were obstacles. I'm not saying that, because being being a lone woman means some other male thought I'm available to them. You know, things like that. They were trying to take me, what you call, we're looking at me with an eye of an, what you call, a sexual object and things like that. I'm not saying I did not go through all that. I went through, in the simple word, what you can say is hell, or I don't know what. But you know that it helped me to overcome because I was a woman. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Sister Lucy. I think Nick Pooja has a question. Could you unmute Pooja, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'm in the same city as Sister Lucy. And Sister Lucy, we also have a lot of common friends. But one of the things that I have always faced a problem with, in contextually speaking, when I try to empower women staff who are being abused by their husbands, facing the classic case of drunken husbands beating them, how does one navigate empowering them to let them know that you need not go through this, because we reach a certain point where they eventually fall back on, he only beats me 5 days of the month. The rest of the 25 days, he's all right. And they choose not to, let go of the situation. And I've reached a point of giving up on most days, saying, I can't solve the problem for you. So how do you navigate that in the work that you do?
Yeah, you know that almost every day, like 3-4 cases, new cases come to us. Old cases are there as it is, and the new cases come. As you said, I also find it difficult to make them understand. But finally, I said, it is not that particular woman's fault as such. It's the society that made her to be what she is. Okay, because what are we telling our women? Outside the marriage life, you have no life. So this is this is so much put into the brain of the woman. She cannot but live with a drunkard husband, because she feels that she has no other way but live with him. And a single woman, as I said earlier, there is no status in especially if you are in a village. The people will look down upon you. That's why when even if a woman becomes a widow in India, it is such a catastrophe for that woman, because she feels that she is to be blamed even becoming a widow, because the whole system has taught her that you are dependent on a man. So it's so difficult. So whenever women come to me, like we have in counseling session, and when we have a home for women, a lot of things we are called to do. And in all these things, I can tell you, the women, they don't have that courage what I have or what you have. It's so difficult for them, because they feel that they have to be dependent on a man. There is no life without that man, even if however he's a drunkard, beating her and everything, but still she will find one reason to hold on to. Which is sometimes I feel it is good, because the children are secure maybe, or sometimes insecure, but at the same time, still they have a father and a mother, however drunkard may be or useless fellow he can be, but better than being an orphan maybe. Because I can see the pain of the women, pain of the orphan children who are with me.
Thank you, Sister Lucy. Nick, can we unmute Carol Bono? She's got a question.
Thank you. Sister Lucy, was there ever a time when you thought you would have to give up your effort to create these homes? And how did you overcome that, if there was such a moment when you thought that this could not work?
Yeah, there was a time in our village, the people, I mean, the fundamentalists, no, not all the people, they call me saying that they're going to give me an award for the work. And what they did was that they insulted me and on the stage. And then they said, if you see any Christian coming into this village, you have to finish them up and things like that. So there was they called me for an award, but then what I got was an insult. So, at that time, I said, my God, I'm giving my life here for these people. And this is how they look at it, then it's not worth working here. So there was some feeling like that. But, as I was walking back home, and when I reached near the gate, because my children missed me, so the whole thing was that children came running to me and said, Didi, where were you for so long? We missed you. So then when I saw that, I said, how can I ever give up? Just because one man has said something, I'm going to give up? Never. So that gave me that kind of, so I can say, all that what I'm doing is I give back to the people who are with me. They gave me the courage, they gave me the love, they gave me everything what was lacking in me. So I give credit to what I am become, I give it to the people. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick. We've got a question from Greg Wynn.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Greg.
Thank you so much for what you've said. I'm just wondering if you could speak to the disabled people that you've come across. Do you have a connection with them? And if so, how do they inspire you?
When you say disabled, is it with what disability you mean? Is it the mentally disturbed or handicapped, physically handicapped?
So any sort of disability, like particularly physical, but also mental and.
Yeah. What happened at the moment, I have nearly over 600 women who are mentally disturbed who are staying with me.
Wow.
And, yeah, and in our different homes, okay? And then we have home for men also for the mentally disturbed, mentally challenged, and also mentally disturbed who have become mad, okay? With the various problems. Plus, we also are dealing with some other cases, like my children who are grown up with, I don't know what you call them. In our simple language, we can call the eunuchs. They're, I don't know, we can't call them transgender because they did not become like that, they're born like that. Okay, so quite a few of them are like that. So, there are different disabilities that we come across. There are children who are blind, some of them who are deaf and dumb, okay, so things like that. So, in all this, what we can see is, how I can say, it's like we grow together with them and we accept them as they are. It's not that because they are disabled to try how we can, like my boy who is suddenly turned out to be, because he grew up like a boy and then suddenly I could make out his voice was different, and then naturally the girls were not accepting him because he had a body of a man, and decided because he chose to dress like a girl, so naturally they were not accepting him. And when we took him for medical examination, then we found out that he's different. And then where to put him? Then neither we could put him with the girls, neither we could put him with the boys, because both the communities were not accepting him. So then I have to have a lot of what you call several meetings with all my other children, what we call normal or abnormal quadrilaterals, I don't know what to call them. So I have to call many meetings, even with my staff, to see that even if it is this single child who has shown up, how we can accept that child. Normally in India, we will see this kind of people begging on every street light, wherever there are. So I said, no, this is not good. My child should not go land on the street. We should accept him. So that acceptance of this, what we call, I don't know whether we call it transgender or eunuchs or whatever it is, that made a lot of difference. And even I can see the entire Maher community is trying to accept. But I had seen him growing up like a boy, and suddenly when he turned out to be a girl, it was not easy also for me to accept him. And once I started working on myself, I found that others also could come in and accept him. And we even celebrated his first birthday being a girl. And then we ourselves bought clothes and we offered him, because that's what he wanted to dress like, because his voice was so different. And he said, I'm not attracted. And this Christmas, he came back to me and said, I find partners for all the people, for our women, for our children to get married. And he asked me, when are you going to get me married to a boy? I said, oh my God, now this will be a big problem, because a Catholic nun allowing same-sex marriage. So this has nothing to do with me. It is his choice. His body is like that. He's liking towards that. So I said, how am I to reject that request? But at the same time, how am I going to help him to find the same sex to marry? I told him, better, this is going to be a very difficult what do you call situation for me. But I didn't say no to him. And I said, okay, let me check. I only said that. But he wants to marry in the same sex, because that is what he's attracted to. That's what he's made of. So now I said to myself, my God, if I allow this, how will the world look at me? Here I'm a Catholic nun, and I'm supporting the same-sex marriage. How will the people take it? What we call it, the fear. Okay. But I'm not having that kind of a thing. I said, okay, this is boy that wants, he knows what he wants, let him do. But now where am I going to find a man for him? That I'm not sure. And then when you say about physically handicapped, of course, we come across a lot of people. And even now they are asking me to create a home for the physically handicapped people, which I have not yet done. Maybe in the future I will do it, because for that means, I have seen in that kind of home in US and in Europe, it is so much, you will really take care. But in India, I have not yet to come across nice homes. If I'm creating, I want to create a home that way if needed. I'm not sure yet. But there are people, and I can fully understand and be with them. I don't have any issues on that.
Thank you so much, Sister Lucy. I think we've come to the end of our time for our Q&A. Thank you to everyone who's put in questions in the chat box, and whatever questions have not been able to be put into the main session here, I hope that you can bring them into the breakout sessions and explore together. So we're going to be moving into breakout rooms in just a minute, but before we do that, I'd like to just give a really heartfelt thank you to Sister Lucy for everything that you've brought to this session today. It's been hugely moving and inspiring to hear your story and your reflections on faith and moral courage. Thank you so, so much. And I know that I'm saying thank you on behalf of everyone who's participated in this webinar so far. Thank you.